Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the ISC Research 2024 annual conference, Future Intelligence. My name's Adam. I'm the comms specialist at ISC Research, and I'll be moderating today's session. Before I pass over to our first speaker, I do have a couple of housekeeping points to mention. Firstly, if you have any questions, we have the Q&A function enabled. We'll do our best to answer them as we can throughout the session and towards the end of each speaker's slot. But if we're unable to get to them, we'll make a note of your name and get back to you afterwards. If you happen to think of a really good question after the session is finished and you thought, I really should have asked that, we will have a discussion forum available. That will be part of the community, and I'll share a link to that now. If you have any technical difficulties, our first sort of response is to log in and log out again of Zoom or of the community. If that doesn't work, please do use the Q&A function and a member of the team will be able to try and assist. Finally, this session is being recorded and will be available to watch in the area of interest, the annual conference area of interest within the community. So that's me done. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Leigh Webb, the CEO of ISC Research, who'll be starting the conference proper. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to ISC Research's annual conference 2024 on future intelligence. My name is Leigh Webb. I'm the CEO of ISC Research, and I'm delighted to welcome you all today to what promises to be 2 days filled with insights on the international school market. Across the two-day conference, you'll receive the latest data on the K-12 international school sector, practical tools to adapt to an ever-growing market, and insights from educational experts on the latest trends affecting schools worldwide. In May, we celebrated 30 years of ISC Research. Hitting such a big milestone as a company naturally meant a time for reflection for us. We've been the leading provider of K-12 international school data, trends, and intelligence since 1994, and in this time have guided countless schools with their growth plans, informed investors on new school developments, and helped educational suppliers and universities engage with international schools worldwide. However, our conference theme this year is Future Intelligence. The international schools market continues to grow, now comprising over 14,000 schools worldwide, with many more planned to open over the coming years. ISC Research continues to grow too, with 55 employees based in 7 different countries. Let's look now at who else you'll be hearing from today. Sami Yosef, ISC's Head of Global Research, will continue this session with a brief update on the international schools market in 2024. You can join Sami again tomorrow for a more in-depth look in his global market overview session. We then focus on one of the most pertinent trends currently impacting international schools, artificial intelligence. We will hear from experienced educational leaders and experts on how international schools are embracing this new technology, utilizing it to improve inclusivity for all students and finding solutions to the new challenges posed. Dina Foster, Head of AI Educator Training at Educate Ventures, will begin our conference in earnest with her keynote speech, setting the scene for the rest of the day's sessions and defining the importance AI has to international schools. After a short break, Matthew Weems from the International School of Bucharest will discuss practical strategies for the integration of AI within the classroom. Following Matthew is Philippa Raithmel, award-winning educator and author, who will explore how AI tools like adaptive learning software and virtual tutors cater to diverse learning needs, empowering every student to reach their full potential. And our final speaker session of the day will be from Rebecca Mace, Senior Lecturer in Education at the University of West London. Rebecca will examine the risks posed to students by AI's rapid rise and explore what schools and educators can do about it. We finished day one with a panel featuring all 3 of our speakers who will discuss some of the key themes raised across the morning. This will also be a chance to ask any questions not previously covered in the morning sessions. On day 2, the ISC Research team will present the latest data and intelligence on the world's international schools. The day will begin with our global market overview for 2024, led by Sami Yosef. This session precedes our popular Global Market Overview report, which will be published in August, which gives insights into what's driving the international schools market today. Sami will then be joined by the rest of his field research team to present information on key countries and sub-regions. Featuring updates on Saudi Arabia, Portugal, India, Vietnam and East Asia, this is a chance to hear from our field researchers and their countries and areas of expertise. It is then the turn of our sales team to showcase how ISC Research can support you and your business. Featuring an exclusive look at our new portal, Will and Sam will take you through steps to reach our target market and how to utilize the latest data and trends to inform your decisions. Our final session of the conference is a panel led by Rachel Rogers, our head of sales, and featuring 3 experts in the international schools market. This insightful session will equip you with the knowledge of what international schools need most from education suppliers and practical tools to implement your business and marketing strategies. This session is perfect for those new to the international schools market or those planning their yearly strategies at the moment. So welcome again to everyone. We hope you're looking forward to today and tomorrow's conference sessions. And without further ado, I'll hand over to Sami to take us through the international schools market in 2024.
Thanks, Leigh, for that kind introduction. Welcome, everyone, to this session. My name is Sami Yosef. I'm the head of global research here at ISC Research. And before we dive into the latest and greatest of what's happening in the international schools market today, I'll give a brief introduction about ISC and what we do, how we collect the data, and so that we're able to present all the latest, greatest trends that are happening within the market itself. So as Leigh mentioned, we have been gathering data and intelligence on the international schools market for 30 years, so since 1994. So we're tracking the market closely for shifts, challenges, best practices, new developments, and emerging opportunities happening within this space. And looking at the statistics here, you can see that we've been processing close to 300,000 data points every year. So in human capital terms, that's 4,500 hours spent on verifying the data to ensure that we and you can trust what we are putting in front of you today. Now, our data and intel has been utilized by a number of different companies and organizations. So in the past 30 years, we've supported schools in their growth development plans, informing investors on new school development projects that they're working on, helping universities to engage with international schools around the world, and also advising educational suppliers and other partners on how they can expand further into this market. So our range of products includes our online data platform, in-depth reports, data sets, and also just the expertise we have within the team that we're able to share within particular specialist areas. So you can follow everything from ISC on our social media platforms, so LinkedIn, X, and Facebook in particular, to make sure you're up to date on all of our news and resources as and when they become available. But now we want to look at how do we actually collect our data, ensure that it's valid. So before we dive into the landscape of the international school sector, let's just actually see what we're collecting from schools and how we're able to report on the latest and greatest of what's happening. So we collect an array of data points from schools. So from the location of them, the ownership structures, company status, the age ranges, the enrollment, the capacity, nationality, fees, is a whole host of different data points that we're collecting. So you're getting more of an idea of why we have 300,000 data points we have to check and verify on an annual basis. We're also on top of that gathering demographic and socioeconomic statistics in key regions and countries. So that includes population, economic growth statistics, because they all have an impact on the demand and prospective demand for international school places. So there's 2 main teams within the company that are gathering data. That's the desk-based research team, really mainly focusing on quantitative research, and the field research team, which I'm a part of, and we're mainly focused on the qualitative research aspect of things. And the most important thing is we are collecting primary data. It's from the source, it's from the schools themselves, and that's how we're able to report on this and share what are the emerging and developing trends within the market. Now, before we actually dive into where the state of play at the moment in the international schools market, we need to first of all define what an international school is. And if you've been working in the sector, you know there's a wide variety of different interpretations and definitions for what constitutes an international school. But for ISC Research, there's two criteria for which we list schools on our database. So the first is for schools operating in a non-English speaking country where English is not an official language. We will include a school if they're privately operated and they deliver a curriculum wholly or partly in English. Check. That's the first reason why we include a school in our database. The second criteria is if we're in a native English speaking country where English is an official language, if a school is privately operated and they offer a curriculum other than the host country's national curriculum, wholly or partly in English. Another checkpoint there, they will be included on our database. So now we're all on the same page, have an understanding for why we list schools on the database and what is an international school. We're ready to start diving into the data and see the latest trends over the past 5 years. So we have 14,457 schools globally, enrolling 7.3 million students and employing 693,692 teachers worldwide. And that last statistic there that you see there, that's $64 billion generated annually in tuition fee only. So that's also a data point that kind of strikes me every single time. When you start to try and have an understanding of the real market cap for international school sector, you have to then evaluate the underlying asset value of all the schools, the other fees that they're charging. We've only been looking at the total annual tuition fee income that's generated by schools here. So that's $64 billion. And over the past 5 years, you can see the percentage growth here. So in terms of the number of schools, they've expanded by 10% around the world, 13% in terms of student numbers. And in the number of teaching staff, that's 15% growth. And in total annual tuition fee income, there's been a 23% growth there. And in the past 5 years, we've had a little known pandemic that has stunted growth, unfortunately. And a little exercise that we did back in 2020 was actually to analyze other global crises that have hit. So for in 2008, the global financial crisis that happened then, and in 2014 with the oil and gas crisis that happened back then as well. What we were able to uncover is that the international schools market recovers surprisingly very quickly from these global crises. And it really cements that education is a cornerstone of human civilization. From a parent's perspective, the investment that they're willing to put into their child's education and future prospects, there's no wavering there, but also from government standpoint as well, and the investment that they make within their contribution of GDP towards education as well. So it's a very strong sector and it continues to grow year on year. So now that we've seen things from a global perspective, we're going to drill down and see it from a regional aspect. And you can see here, Asia is dominating the international schools market. 57% of all international schools are located within this region. And if that's in terms of the number of schools, that's 8,314 schools located within Asia itself. And also they're teaching 4.7 million students. So that's over half of the world's international school students. And just to remind you, this is K to 12. So that's age 3 to 18 years old that we're looking at here. The top 4 countries are actually also located within Asia. That's China, India, the United Arab Emirates, and Pakistan. If you're wondering what the 5th country to make up that top 5, Brazil comes in as the 5th. Now, we've actually tried to highlight as well here just the significance of some of the sub-regions, or 4 of the sub-regions within Asia, being East, Southeast, Southern and Western Asia here, to really show that they also, in terms of the size of those markets and the number of schools, they equal the size of regional markets of Europe, the Americas, and Africa in terms of their scale and size. So let's dive in even deeper. Let's see from a sub-regional level how the world is comprised. And we'll see over the past 5 years how the sub-regions have been growing around the world. And you can see here, as I mentioned before, 10% growth globally, but how this is broken down from a sub-regional level. And you see here what really jumps off the screen here is Southeast Asia. It told the pandemic to stand aside because that's 16% growth in the number of schools within this sub-region. So phenomenal growth. And there's a lot to uncover as you go deeper and deeper into the data. And as Leigh mentioned in the program for tomorrow's sessions, we're actually going to be doing a focus on Vietnam, which is one of the key markets that's been growing within Southeast Asia. So Janelle Torres from the field research team, she will be presenting on that, and very excited to hear what she has to say on the Vietnamese market. But at the top of the charts there, you have Western Asia, which is inclusive of the Middle East, that had 11% growth over the past 5 years in terms of the number of schools, and continues to grow continuously. Again, scratching underneath the surface here, looking at what's happening within each of the country markets. You have the likes of the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, looking to attract more foreign direct investment, opening up the private sector education, and looking to grow and expand that area within their markets. Whereas in East Asia, we have a different environment there, where we have countries like China and South Korea imposing quite strict regulations on the international school sector and limiting the growth opportunities for school operators there. Compare that within the same region, Japan, where we have seen a lot of notable brands opening up, particularly in the boarding side of things, that are capitalizing on those restrictive environments within those other markets in the same sub-region. We've also included here the top performing sub-regions from other regional markets, being South America, Southern Europe, and Western Africa. For South America, it had a growth of 9%. So we've got 1,040 schools now located within the South American sub-region. Southern Europe, there was 12% growth over the past 5 years, now reaching 734 schools. And Western Africa, rounding up there, 10% growth over the past 5 years, 572 schools now located there. And as we go through this, you see there's a lot of nuances to each individual country market that we're covering. And that's the part of what our field research team are doing. We're on the ground, we're interviewing individual schools, so the senior leaders at international schools, and we're getting the understanding of the context within their school, within their city, within the country. And that allows us to have more of an understanding, of a comprehensive understanding of what's happening from a sub-regional, regional perspective in the international schools market. I mean, we look at Western Africa, for example, there, and Nigeria, one of the country markets. There's great opportunity there. When you look at it from a demographic standpoint, huge opportunity in terms of it's got a young population, still growing, high fertility rate, but there's challenges as well on top of that. When you look at it economically, from May 2023 through to March 2024, there was a 40% depreciation in the Naira, being the local currency. And the government mandates that international schools must conduct all transactions within the local currency. So from a school operator perspective, that's a great challenge that they have to face. When you're looking to prepare for the next academic year, it's the remuneration packages. How can you stay competitive on a global platform to other other schools that are going to be vying for the same teachers that you're looking to recruit? And it's not only Nigeria, but in Africa, unfortunately, that has had to suffer from currency depreciations. In Northern Africa, Egypt has had the same problem. Ghana has also had this similar problem as well. So there's a lot of challenges, even though within the African continent, there's actually a lot of opportunity for growth within the international school sector. So a lot to navigate and a lot of nuances as you drill down even deeper into these sub-regions to look at the country markets themselves. And so as I mentioned before, tomorrow we'll be going a little bit deeper into these different areas. So for Europe, we're going to do a focus on Portugal. That would be by Elena. She'll be covering that in tomorrow's session. Myself, I'll be covering Saudi Arabia. Tony, he'll be covering East Asia as a sub-region, because there's a lot of different dynamics happening there. Abhishek will be covering an update on India. And as I mentioned before, Janelle will be covering Vietnam. So as I mentioned with the field research team, we're interviewing senior leaders at schools and getting an understanding of the topics of interest, the emerging trends that they're really facing. And what we've comprised here today are 6 of those kind of top trends that we talk about when we're interviewing the heads of schools. And it's not just the heads, it's with CFOs, the COOs, all the leadership team. We're engaging with them to have a real understanding as to what's happening on the ground for them. And at the top of the charts there, staff recruitment and CPD solutions. Every single recruitment cycle, we're finding that schools are trying to recruit earlier, because it's an ongoing challenge for them. And I think in particular, like specialist subject teachers has really come out as an area that school leaders are facing a challenge in, particularly in physics and chemistry and those specialist subject areas. And professional development solutions is that they're always looking out for, what are the cutting edge areas, and as what our focus is for today's conference being artificial intelligence. That's been a big area of professional development that senior leaders have been looking into, how they can upskill their teaching staff to have a greater understanding and appreciation for AI and how it can enhance the learning and personalized learning for students in their care. So that's kind of the first topic area that senior leaders have been sharing with us. For DEIJ, actually at the IRCOS Leadership Conference back in October, that was the theme of their conference. It's a very hot topic, and it's around areas such as recruitment. How can you have an equitable recruitment process, ensuring that you give equal opportunity to everybody, embedding it into the curriculum so that you're also being able to teach that to the students in your care, and also for resourcing for the school as well. Having understanding with schools located all around the world, the context that they're working in the host country as well. They're hiring a very diverse body of staff. So how can you ensure that the culture that you have at your school, there's equality within that? So that's a really hot topic and trending thing for school leaders at the moment. Well-being, especially since COVID as well, it's an area of focus, and also you're finding that governments as well are placing emphasis on this. I bring up the United Arab Emirates as one in particular. They place well-being as a very important area that school leaders need to pay attention to, and also parents have been as well. So since the pandemic, parents are placing a lot of emphasis, scrutinizing more what's happening at school with their kids, and they're placing more emphasis on their happiness. But also resilience, so different life skills, like being able to, their social skills with their peers in their classroom as well. So well-being, a big topic that schools have been looking at, and sustainability as well. So you have how schools are looking to embed it within their curriculum, the teaching and learning programs. So having more student-led projects, but also how they can save on energy. So looking at solar panels that they can bring in more sustainable practices there. The reduction of paper usage, so looking at digital textbooks as a solution. Also about growing produce on campus as well, with kitchen gardens, embracing more outdoor learning, maker spaces. So there's a lot of initiatives that schools are looking at to embrace sustainability within the school. And technology is a tool as well. So they're embracing new and innovative technologies that are coming out. And I think I'll leave it to the experts on the rest of the sessions today to really cover artificial intelligence, as AI has been the big trending topic for the past academic year, and it's ongoing going into this next academic year cycle. It's still very, very relevant to senior leaders in preparing for the next academic year. And that final one, probably most important really, is safeguarding within an international context. As parents are enrolling their children into schools, the safety and security of their children is of utmost paramount importance for parents, especially as well for senior leaders in school. They need to ensure that children are safe from physical and emotional harm on their campuses. And so there's a great attention to detail on how they ensure not only that physically the campus is secure and safe, but also that from a staff perspective and from other students as well, there's a care in terms of the emotional support for students there. And you find as well, with in the age of information age that we're in, data protection, cybersecurity as well is a big piece that schools are having to address and ensure that their kids are safe in that regard. So you also often find that senior leaders of schools are looking beyond what the local regulations are stipulating. They just want to make sure that they have a very safe and safe space for the children in their care. So that kind of rounds up, that's some of the work that we're doing on the ground as field researchers, and all of this data and intelligence that we're gathering is supplemented as well by the desk-based research team, combining it all. It's being verified and checked and ensure that what we can publish out here can be trusted. And yeah, I'll be excited to share more in depth in the global market overview for 2024 in tomorrow's session. We'll go in more depth and detail into these different areas. And I just hope that you enjoy the rest of the conference today. I'll hand back over to Adam, who will get our keynote kicked off.
Thank you, Sami, and thanks, Leigh, for starting us off this morning. I'm going to hand over to Dina Foster now, who will sort of begin talking about AI and its importance and relevance within education at the moment.
Hi everyone. Could I just get a thumbs up from somebody if you're able to see my screen? Excellent. Thanks, Sami. Your video is still on, so that's great. I can see that. Hello everyone. I'm Dina Foster. I'm head of educator training, AI educator training at ISC Ventures Research. I believe you can't see me. Is that right? There we go. Hopefully that's all working now. So just by brief introduction, ISC Ventures Research are an organisation founded by Professor Rose Luckin, who herself has 30 years of experience in AI and education. And we really try and position ourselves according to Rose's Golden Triangle, which if anyone has read any of her work, you'll be familiar with, which is essentially about unifying what's happening in research, what's happening in the world of ed tech, and crucially, what's happening in schools. Now, myself, I'm from a teaching background. I'm a former deputy head with experience, everything from writing the curriculum, the timetable, head of sixth form, French and Spanish teacher, putting out the chairs for assembly, the whole lot. And I also have begun to explore the world of artificial intelligence through academia. I've been a student at the University College London at the Institute of Education, where I completed my MTeach and my Masters in Education and Technology, and I'm currently a doctoral candidate there, conducting PhD research into AI strategy. So whilst I'm not a data scientist, I feel I'm well placed to try and translate some of what's happening in the world of AI, in particular AI in education, to a real world environment, which I'm sure you have joined us today to see what AI can mean for you, and hopefully we'll be able to help you unlock its potential in a safe and purposeful way. I'm going to start with the classic question, what is AI? And I wonder how many people think of something like this when they're asked that question or invited to think about AI, particularly in the context of education. This is just a very simple, straightforward definition, if you like, of artificial intelligence, which is essentially a technology that can do things that would normally require intelligence if we were to do them. Now, and here we are, we've got a robot playing the piano. And the reason I asked you how many people thought of that robotic image, that sort of futuristic idea, is because I actually think quite often when we're encountering resources and information around artificial intelligence, it's very often positioned with that futuristic narrative around it. That actually, when we look around our classrooms, we don't often see robots and humanoid use and implication of artificial intelligence. It's actually quite unhelpful, I think, to think of it like that, because it creates an unnecessary distance between artificial intelligence and its uses and its real life implementation in settings. There's a real distance between that and what's actually happening in classrooms, what's happening with learners on their phones, on their devices at home. So we really need to try and narrow that gap with regards to this technology, because it is accessible. It is actually very normal. It has been around for a very, very long time. And it's certainly something that while some of us as practitioners will be adjusting to the way it's launched into classrooms recently and forced its way into schools, but it's actually something that for the young people we're teaching, it's not something new. There will be learners in classrooms now that will be growing up alongside artificial intelligence. And for them, this is just normal life. So we should try and steer away, I feel, from that sort of unhelpful futuristic thinking around artificial intelligence. I'm not going to bore you with the complete timeline of AI, but only to share with you, I was doing a session with some learners a couple of months ago, and I asked them, how long do you think artificial intelligence has been around? And they sort of agreed, yes, a long time, probably about 20 years, which made me feel very old. But it's actually, it's 70 something years old, artificial intelligence. And I think the very crucial part of this timeline, if you have a little look at some of the key developments from the Turing test to Deep Blue winning the chess championship, we've seen different iterations of artificial intelligence, but as it has progressed, and that's even within, AI winters and so on, an investment may have fluctuated. I think we've seen in the last 20 years or 10 years even real momentum gathering. And I think something that is crucial that happened back in 2022 was the launch of ChatGPT-3, which really did thrust artificial intelligence, across the media and very much into everyday people's lives. If you're on your journey as a school, artificial intelligence in the form of generative AI, and there are other types of artificial intelligence available and embedded within technology that is used in schools and has been for a long time, but ChatGPT came along and it suddenly became the only thing people could see, the only thing people wanted to talk about in terms of what artificial intelligence was and what it could mean for society and for learners and for teachers. So the first thing I would do is suggest that we shrink that to a proportional size in our journey with artificial intelligence as schools and as educators. It's not the only artificial intelligence available. And yes, there was a real flurry of interest around how do we stop cheating and, what is the point in teaching this or that if artificial intelligence can do it, and if learners are just going to a system like ChatGPT to create their homework, to write their essays, we need to perhaps realize that we need to act rather than react to the threat and the promises of artificial intelligence, and consider really, what does it mean for the classroom in terms of motivation, in terms of how we're personalizing learning for learners? What does that interaction look like in the classroom and at home? How can we really explore artificial intelligence to support our teachers, to enable them to enhance their pedagogy, reduce their workload, improve some of those problems around recruitment and retention? How can artificial intelligence be used purposefully to improve, progress, attainment? How can it help us meet the priorities that we have in different schools? And finally, what is the impact of this development? Because schools tend to be quite slow, I think, to react to what's happening perhaps in other fields. Artificial intelligence, and we'll look at this in a moment, is having a huge impact on the world of work. And if we're doing right by our learners and preparing them for that environment, we need to really start thinking about that now in terms of how they're using artificial intelligence as they're growing up and moving through the school system. So AI isn't new, and neither is AI in education. This is a really fantastic paper, if you like, authored by Rose Luckin and colleagues. It's from 2013. It's really quite old already, but it offers such interesting insight into how AI can be used to support individuals and make recommendations based on data. It doesn't flag generative AI, but it is a good grounding if someone is responsible for driving AI leadership in their schools. I really would recommend you have a read of this paper. It's fantastic and it's very relevant now. But obviously that's been around since 2013, and various experts in the field have been working around this, but not necessarily being able to harness artificial intelligence, not capture the attention in the way that we are now, thanks to ChatGPT. And obviously it's this scaled technology that is so freely available that is having a huge impact in our classrooms. And these systems have become really impressive and are being used in many, many disciplines. And I think what really makes them stand out is the availability of use and the really human-like behavior that is making interactions with this type of technology really very accessible. So we're going to talk a little about expertise in AI literacy, but I think something that's very notable with these tools is how easy they are to use. And that's both a blessing and a curse, because, and it's true of teachers developing their expertise, but also learners growing up alongside this technology. So I'm going to throw some big questions at you for you to consider now and also through the rest of the day as you're looking in detail at the different workshops. But I would put to you, do you really need to understand AI? What does that mean? What does it mean to understand it? How technical and understanding does that need to be? I think you do need to understand it. I think, in order to address a couple of those other questions, to understand what it can do, to understand what its benefits are, and really think about how it can help you with your priorities. You need to really think about what you're trying to achieve with artificial intelligence. It should be used with purpose, and it should be used safely. But in order to do that, you need to have an understanding about what you should be concerned around. What are the threats? And crucially, how can you mitigate against those? And we're really encouraging people to try and develop a very critical mindset around artificial intelligence. And my favorite phrase at the moment is that your AI approach, it should be school first, not tool first. And I think there's so much hype surrounding AI, and certainly different tech companies are very pushy. And I think it's really important that schools are able to push back a little and think, okay, yes, there's a lot of promise for AI, but what do we need to understand about it? And what do we need to have in place? And what is our journey looking like? Where are we going to use it with intention and purpose? And how are we going to make sure we're using it in a safe and responsible and ethical way? I'm going to share with you my AI stallion. And I feel that this really does represent artificial intelligence in all its glory for what it could mean in schools and in education moving forward. And there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence as the fourth industrial revolution. And I think this stallion here does demonstrate really how powerful it could be. And you think if you can get that power to work for you, to work to address the areas that you want to focus on, the areas that need impact, that need that extra strength and heavy lifting, then it could be really transformational. So powerful. If you can just direct that properly and get that to work for you or to work for your learners. And I think the other thing that comes with that power is that that's a beast. It's quite intimidating, it's quite scary. If this AI stallion were real, you would not allow that to rampage through your school unchecked. You would not want that careering through the corridors and, galloping across a playground with learners there. And really, that's the other side that we need to consider when we're talking about artificial intelligence, because yes, if we can get it to work for us, we can do fantastic things. But how can we make sure that power is harnessed properly? Both so we can direct it, but also so we can pull back on the reins when we need to and make sure we're keeping ourselves and our learners safe. So I have 2 words for you that really need to underpin any approach to embedding artificial intelligence. That's harness and balance. So you really want to get a harness onto the use of AI in your schools. I speak to school leaders often who are very keen to get the benefits of AI, but aren't actually on top of where it's already being used. How many schools have already conducted a thorough audit and can say with confidence, yes, it's being used here and here and here. Here are the gaps where it's not being used. This is what it's being used for and how it's being addressed. This is the process the tools have been through in order to be vetted as safe and deemed appropriate for use in the classroom for homework, whatever it might be. It's really important to understand what AI can do, work out how it can be used, how it is being used, and really use that intentionally. Got to be able to balance out those risks. And there's a real solutionist allure, I think, to the promise of AI. And it can help to solve, resolve, improve a lot of different problems. But we've got to balance that out with the risks, because what you don't want to be doing is in pursuing the solution of one problem, opening yourselves up to the emergence of new problems. So really taking a balanced view is so important. What are the benefits? When we talk about ed tech, quite often different frameworks sort of signpost to this idea of using technology to support existing practice or to enhance it or to ultimately transform it. And I think there's a sort of innate hierarchy there that, you using technology to transform is better than using it to support existing practice. And whilst I can completely see the argument there, I would urge people to just think very carefully about the AI and what are you trying to tap into when you're employing artificial intelligence within a particular circumstance. If you're trying to reduce teacher workload, there's no reason that AI shouldn't work alongside a teacher just to support what is already going on. If you're looking at how to improve student motivation, then perhaps, yes, you want artificial intelligence in terms of content creation, video creation, whatever it might be, to enhance that learning experience for learners. And I'm not saying that one is more valuable than the other. It could be that you want to transform an aspect of your curriculum or an element of a learner's experience of education. And that's also very, very worthy. I think my point here is, which are you doing, where, and in what order? Again, being driven by your needs rather than the promise of a tool or perhaps enthusiasm. And it's very important to be enthusiastic about this new technology. It's very important to experiment with it safely. But I think it's at the same time, whilst I said, you need to get a harness on that stallion, a harness, it might not be the harness you end up with. You might well tighten different elements of the harness, reinforce different parts of it, get that AI stallion to work in different areas of the school. But I think just the important thing is for it to be situated within a strategic approach. Similarly, in terms of exploring the benefits, where do you start? Do you want to harness the power of AI within student engagement? Perhaps it's around data and really trying to monitor learning using assessment data, leading to really timely intervention in a way in which we've not been able to previously. Perhaps you want to reduce workload through recommendation systems and automation. It might be that actually that artificial intelligence could be of most value to you in your school by using it to address inequality. How can you use it to enhance the experience for different learner groups so that we are addressing gaps due to a lack of inclusion, a lack of access? And this is where I was talking about, what do you need to understand about AI? You need to understand what it can do across all of these different benefits. And I know you'll be exploring some of them this afternoon and later on this morning. Everything from virtual tutors to gamification to AI-supported search, AI revision, timetable tools. I mean, there's a real wealth of opportunity out there. But I would suggest rather than trying to do everything at once, you think, okay, what is the most meaningful for us? What is the most practical place for us to start? And then as you're balancing out, addressing where you want to employ artificial intelligence, you can then respond proportionately to the different threats. So here I've listed just some common threats associated with the use of artificial intelligence that are particularly pertinent to schools. But depending on the use, depending on your context, some of these may be of greater or lesser concern. So, for example, a lack of transparency within the decision-making models. If you're not allowing artificial intelligence decision-making power, then that doesn't need to concern you. Personal data and data risk, though, should be high on everyone's radar, because if you're using a generative AI, if you're using a large language model, what is the protocol around what is submitted into these models and what is not? How are we protecting learners' data? How are we talking to learners about how they are using and interacting with these different types of technologies? The inherent bias within the content that is generated by artificial intelligence. Is this something that is sufficient, that is paid sufficient attention? Is this something that learners are safeguarded against? So when we talk about ethics and safeguarding, I think it's very sensible to say just because you can use a tool, an artificial intelligence, doesn't mean you should. And what is that critical mindset around access to AI and weighing up and assessing how appropriate it might be in a given situation? But beyond that, in terms of safeguarding, we talk about safeguarding with a capital S, which are sort of statutory obligations to keep learners safe. Well, how are we revisiting those responsibilities with an AI lens to see how those different safeguarding threats might have changed, might have become more of an issue, might vulnerable learners be more at risk as a result of artificial intelligence in the classroom and in society at large. There's also safeguarding with a smaller s, and these are some of the things that we want to try and safeguard learners from, and really the key word is protect learners from some of the unintended consequences around artificial intelligence, where we're offloading tasks and we're using artificial intelligence as an intelligent assistant, for example, delegating tasks to it and really offloading from us onto an AI, something that we don't need to do. We can be busy being creative or doing some intricate problem solving. You know, what might be lost along the way there? Are we offloading too much? Are we even stopping to think, hang on a minute, what should I be offloading and what do I want to keep as the teacher? What do we want learners to keep hold of as students, as young people? And again, this comes down to that point around agenda and purpose. You know, the agenda for the use of AI in schools shouldn't be set by technology companies or by what a tool is able to do, but rather what are you trying to do with the tool? So we need to think very carefully around that. However, having said, you know, all of that, it's not rocket science. You know, what is the base of understanding that we need? And then how do we plan for that? And finally, how do we act? Now, I know that in that flurry, that initial flurry around ChatGPT, many schools have had to act before they've had a chance to understand, and certainly before they've had a chance to plan for AI. But there's nothing wrong with that, because any plan, any strategy needs to be agile, and it needs to be able to respond to what we're seeing in that AI environment and how learners might be using that. So I think it's fine to have those plates spinning at the same time. But some crucial things to consider, you know, what does AI look like from all of your different stakeholders? What do teachers think about artificial intelligence broadly, but also specifically in your context? What about your senior leadership? What about across your senior leadership team? Do middle leaders feel differently about this to your SLT? How about learners? How prolific is the use of artificial intelligence? How is it being used by the learners, and crucially by different learner groups? You know, you may well find that the next stakeholder group I have here is parents. You may well find that the learners whose parents are very switched on and motivated by AI are at an advantage to those who we know about the digital divide. Is artificial intelligence intensifying that gap in your school? How do your governors, your trustees feel about artificial intelligence and the extent to which it should be a priority? Are the support staff receiving the support, the training? Do they have the expertise they need to really take advantage of this? You know, teaching assistants, there's a real opportunity for all of these different roles to explore what AI means for them and how it might change their role or their experience within school if you just apply that AI lens to their role. Ooh, right. But what we're trying to do is really build a mindset around artificial intelligence. It's not just another technology. It's something that we really do need to be mindful about, the pace of adoption, what that balance is across the school in terms of its use, and understanding what the levels of confidence are around it. I think it's something that a number of schools were very enthusiastic about and were straight out the gates really trying to get a head start on artificial intelligence. And other schools and other teachers, other practitioners are still saying, well, I've heard about it. I don't really know how to use it. I certainly don't know how to use it safely. And again, we're seeing this sort of real spectrum of expertise and use and confidence. And we need to navigate the hype, and we need to also navigate the fear, because the fear is genuine. I've said already, there's positives and negatives. And I think it's very important to make sure, as we're achieving that balance, we recognize the fears of maybe some of the different stakeholders might have different fears, and that we're communicating clearly and we are positive about the use of artificial intelligence, because there's no point burying your head in the sand about it. It's not the future, it's now, but it's only going to become more significant in the future. So we want to be positive about it, yet critical. You know, we want to try and use it to our advantage, but really make sure we're the ones holding the reins and try and make sure we've got the right decision-making processes in place, taking an evidence-based approach. And that could be drawing on research, but that could also be drawing on your own evidence. So with evaluation, like an evaluation cycle such as this should really be feeding back and informing the decision-making at all levels around artificial intelligence. You know, what are the priorities? What are you trying to do with it? How does it relate to other practices within the school? What are the clear outcomes that you want to achieve by using artificial intelligence? And then when it's being implemented, are you stopping to check what it's doing? What assumptions you've made that maybe aren't true? What success have you had? Perhaps you're going to launch a pilot using a particular tool in a particular area of the curriculum for a certain amount of time. You know, when you review that, what does that do to feed back into the next set of priorities? And I think just sharing a cycle like this with all your teachers is a really helpful way to start that sort of, you know, understand, plan, act. And it's an iterative and very flexible approach that helps you build AI literacy. Now, I just wanted to signpost to a couple of frameworks. This AI literacy framework from Digital Promise is really interesting. And those two screenshots there, the blue and the green, are from the draft AI competency frameworks from UNESCO. One is for teachers and one, crucially, is actually for students. And it's something this is in draft form. I believe it's due to come out in September in its full form. But that would be a good starting point to look at that and say, okay, where do we need to develop? Where do we need to really address these different competencies and support them with CPD and build out our expertise and our confidence as we move forward using artificial intelligence? It needn't be complicated, though. I'm going to share with you an example that I've used around developing an understanding about what artificial intelligence is and isn't, which is a crucial part of AI literacy. So this is taken from the Google Test Kitchen, a software called QuickDraw, and it will tell you an item, a noun, and you sketch it. And it is reading the image as you create it and trying to guess or correctly identify the image. It asked me to draw a book, and I drew that picture there you can see in the white box, which I think we would probably all agree is a book. However, the neural net that underpins this from Google did not recognize that as a book. And what it did was it said, actually, no, I think that looks like a barn or a paintbrush or a popsicle. And it overlays that over it's quite transparent, this as a tool. It's very interesting. It overlays that so you can see, okay, I can see what that net was matching against my drawing. It then shared what it expected a book to look like. And I think this is a really clear example of how, as humans, we can transfer our understanding in a very agile way. We can draw on all sorts of elements of our human intelligence to understand, because we are intelligent. And this demonstrates the limitations of an artificial intelligence, that it's not a living, live, intelligent creature. It couldn't recognize a picture of a book because I'd drawn it on a different plane from a different perspective, and it was expecting an open-paged book. So this, I'm going to just very quickly touch on, but anyone who's interested, Professor Rose Luckin wrote a book called Human Intelligence and Machine Learning. And this draws on the different layers of human intelligence and how complex our intelligence really is. Compared with artificial intelligence, nowhere near, nowhere close. So what we need to do when we're looking forward is to think about, how does our intelligence sit alongside artificial intelligence? And actually it's our ability to reflect on our own thinking that really does set us apart. Thinking to the future, though, about what that intelligence looks like, artificial intelligence is going to become, or the ability to work with artificial intelligence is becoming a very crucial skill. So this report out in May from Microsoft and LinkedIn really draws attention to the extent to which artificial intelligence is being used in the workplace. And it is growing at pace in terms of the amount of people using artificial intelligence, 75% of people, according to this report. Crucially for our learners, 66% of leaders there said they would not hire someone without AI skills. So in terms of equipping our learners with the skills they're going to need when they go out into the workplace, This from the World Economic Forum does show, yes, creative thinking is up there, technological literacy is right up there, AI and big data. These are all really important, as whether or not they're in the curriculum now, they're definitely skills that will be in demand in the future. And we've been talking about 21st century skills for a long time, and collaboration, communication, creativity, creative thinking. And we know that we have to always be flexible because the world of work is always wanting different skills from our learners. And we don't want to get into a debate about how well suited our curriculum is to what the workplace is looking for. But this quote from the OECD, I think, rings really true to how we should be navigating AI with our learners. And that we really want to try and support this shift from having students just learning answers, which is redundant to a certain extent, but actually supporting them not to learn answers, but to ask the right questions and to know what to do with the content that is then provided, navigate ambiguity, that critical mindset I was talking about, distinguishing fact from opinion. And that's really how we want to be equipping our learners. I'm going to end with just this last thought. And for me, really, this is what it's all about. Once we've understood it and we plan and we act, we should try and, I would urge you to be a little more ambitious than just, oh, how are we using generative AI? How are we using ChatGPT? But really think about, okay, if we've got artificial intelligence and everything it can offer us, what happens when we add that to our human intelligence? Not replace our human intelligence, not offload, but if we position them side by side, then we can create something called augmented intelligence, which is, in a way, it's like the ultimate job share. And when you think about what we could achieve alongside artificial intelligence, really harnessing it to support our own intelligence. I know I said I didn't like the futuristic imaging, but I think really that is the very special thing. And it's that combination that that I think is what we should be aiming for as we set out on that journey. Right, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Dina, for that fascinating insight into the current AI landscape. You've certainly given us a lot of food for thought, and I'm sure in the upcoming sessions we've got this morning, some of those things you touched upon will be explored in greater detail. I particularly like what you said about the school first, not tool first kind of approach to AI, and I think that's something that's really relevant and certainly resonates with a recent white paper that we published at ISC Research all about PedTech and putting pedagogy at the real center of schools thinking when it comes to all these new things. We've got a few minutes left before the session ends. I can't see any questions at the moment, but if anyone has any, now's the time. I will share a link to our discussion forum. So if you do think of any questions, which I'm sure you'll have over the course of the day, this will be a good place to drop them in. But if there are no questions, I'll throw forward to the rest of the day. So we're going to have about a 15-minute break now. And starting at 11:15 UK time, we've got two sessions coming up. The first is supporting students with AI. That's by Matthew Weems from the International School of Bucharest. And then we have the inclusive classroom, so working with SEN students, and that's by Filippo Raithmel. Just a reminder that won't be in this Zoom link. You'll need to leave this session and rejoin another one. I'll share the link to that now. You should be able to find it within the community as well. Great, we've got no questions for now, so I'll just say another big thank you to Dina, to Sami, and to Leigh for kicking off the conference in great style. I'm very much looking forward to the rest of today's sessions and also everything we have in store tomorrow. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you very shortly. Bye-bye.